this morning to address some very important matters which have come to the surface in the ongoing CIP scandal, which is who said to a reporter quite famously that our country is whoring. And Walcott was at the time responding to questions from a reporter about his thoughts of the base of the Majestic Peats, the World Heritage Site, the Peter Management Area. And Walcott then said famously that our country is whoring. It means, for those of you who are not familiar with the old English word of whoring, it means we are simply prostituting our country. Recent developments in the CIP has led me to again quote Walcott, whom I have previously quoted publicly. I have in my possession a memo from the St. Lucia Citizen by Investment Unit. And the memo comes from Emmanuel McLeod, signed on the second page, and it is addressed to authorized agents, promoters, and marketing agents of the CIP program for St. Lucia. The date of the memo is the 1st of February 2024. The memo goes on to say this: St. Lucia Citizenship by Investment Unit is pleased to announce that the introduction of its latest application forms and new investment option commencing Monday, 5th of February 2024. The new application forms create a simpler and more efficient method of collecting critical applicant data while eliminating redundancies associated with the existing ones. I will go to the third paragraph of the memo. It says, titled, "The Infrastructure Option, this investment category falls within the existing enterprise project investment as option 3. This latest option offers an expanded option for developers to invest in projects which are towards enhancing the country's infrastructure. Prices begin at US $100,000 for a single applicant and $150,000 for a family of up to 4 members. It would mean, therefore, that if a family of 4 is allowed to apply and pay $150,000, that our passports are currently advertised and sold in the CIP marketplace for as low as $37,500 US. This is a disgrace to me. This is shameful. This is outrageous. And the government, by this very simple act, has now made St. Lucia one of the cheapest CIP programs in the entire world. St. Lucia is now selling its for as low responsibility. And so I am very disturbed that the government did not disclose this and other details pertaining to the infrastructure program so that you, the people of St. Lucia, can have a better appreciation for what's going on in the program. The government told us of the infrastructure in the much publicized address by the Minister for CIP that Galaxy was going to put up $100 million in the infrastructure program. In exchange for what? We asked the minister. Didn't you find it necessary that if you're going to say that Galaxy's obligation in the agreement is for them to put up $100 million for the government to do infrastructure, then what is Galaxy doing this in exchange for what? Why didn't you level with the people of St. Lucia? There is a massive scandal where there's a thirst for information, and you, the minister, deliberately did not brief the people on the full details of the infrastructure program. So I am left to conclude that your address, Mr. Minister, was nothing but to deliberately try to confuse the public over this very complex matter. I thought you had a really good opportunity to address the country on the very pressing concerns that all St. Lucians had about the ongoing CIP scandal, instead of giving us the assurance that our visa-free access to the EU and the UK are not at risk, and our banking system is not compromised. Hilaire has confirmed our worst fears. We remain convinced that something is fundamentally wrong with the way the St. Lucia Labour Party administration continues to manage the CIP program. It is unfortunate that St. Lucians are still finding out very little details about the many developments in the CIP because there is a scandal. For months, the opposition begged the government to please release the details of the infrastructure program. The minister claimed that the program was launched in March, but we see from the memo from McLeod that the effective date of the program was on Monday, the 5th of February. Again, more lies, more confusion, more misinformation, more disinformation. All of this, St. Lucians, are geared at trying to confuse you, the people of St. Lucia, about the very facts. We need to get down to the bottom of these issues. The minister made a very, very empty speech in his address to the country. No press release was issued to the local media, no press launch itemizing the various components of the said program. We only found out about the infrastructure program and that Galaxy was a developer from a press release from Galaxy itself. When the whole program went awry, when the scandal had gotten so intolerable that not even the minister himself can afford to stay quiet, that's when the Galaxy put out a press release. We're told that McLeod Emmanuel informed Mr. Martinez that in addition to 6,000 applications allotted for the real estate program, an additional 7,000 applications were allocated to Galaxy for the infrastructure program. How I would have loved for the minister to confirm or to deny and to tell us what are the real numbers. A total of 13,000 applications with a minimum cash value of $1.4 billion is still left out there lingering as rumor because the minister has not been able to deny or confirm. The minister went through great lengths to confuse the St. Lucian public by not fully explaining the following steps. And here is how the CIP program works, St. Lucians. When a developer comes to St. Lucia and they propose to do a project, the first thing that happens is that the developer says, we are going to spend X amount of money, and the government of St. Lucia says, we are going to allocate as many passports as possible so that you, the developer, can sell and recoup the cost of the project. So that is the stage where the government allocates a certain amount of passports. Then the developer goes out and the developer invites various applicants to apply to be St. Lucian citizens via a prospective development or through the donation or the various options that would be outlined by the CIP unit. Then the approval stage. The approval stage is the final process. However, there could be several applications that are still pending. It doesn't mean because the minister said that only 1,636 were approved means that that's all that was allocated to Galaxy. Again, the minister sought to confuse you, the people of St. Lucia, by skipping the first two steps and going straight to the final step. And so our question to the minister remains, how many passports did you agree to allow Galaxy to sell for their real estate development in canals? How many? My colleague will share what the United Workers' Party approach was as it relates to Galaxy. You said that there were 1,367 have been approved. How many approvals are pending is the other question. Why are you running away from dealing with how many passports did you agree with Galaxy for? That's the issue. Please stop trying to confuse the people of St. Lucia. Stop trying to play politics with this rather important issue of international proportions. We have a scandal on our hands, and the minister and the government must come clean to dispel our fears. We also have questions relating to the infrastructure program. One, is Galaxy putting up $100 million for free? How many passports did you allot? Why didn't you find it necessary to debunk the allegation made by Martinez that the CEO of the CIP unit told him that the government allocated or approved as many as 7,000 passports to be sold to Galaxy, or allow Galaxy to sell 7,000 passports to the international marketplace? Those questions, they still abound. They still loom large. And we need the minister to come clean to let us know what is really going on with the CIP program. In the meantime, we will continue to call for the minister's head. We are calling on the Prime Minister to relieve the minister immediately of his portfolios because he failed to give account to the nation. Coming and say that you're going to do an audit, an operational audit, while you haven't done for the last 2 years, no financial reports on the CIP unit. Do you believe that it is responsible? How can a minister of government feel comfortable knowing that financial reports have not been done for the last 2 financial years of April 1, 2022 to March 31st, 2023, and for April 1, 2023 to March 31st, 2024. Those 2 reports are outstanding. All other reports are published. What does the minister have to hide? Why is he so sketchy with the information? Why is he so reserved with information that we, the public, are still seeking to make a proper judgment as to what's going on with our CIP program? I'll stop here for now. Invite my colleague, the PRO, Mr. Montoot, to make some open statements so that we can take your questions following that.
Thank you very much, Senator Fede and Deputy Political Leader of the United Workers' Party. Special good morning to all of you present here, members of the media, and I would like to extend a special good morning to those watching online, especially those from the diaspora who regularly follow those press briefings of the United Workers' Party. Just to follow up on what my colleague has said, I mean, it is no secret now that our nation state, St. Lucia, is in the throes of the biggest scandal in its history. And the scandal which involves the CIP, the CEO, Mr. McLeod Emmanuel, and the minister responsible for the CIP program, Deputy Prime Minister, Dr. Honorable Ernest Hilaire. Potentially, this scandal can have devastating consequences for this country's, he mentioned as a defendant in the RICO lawsuit filed in the US, has sought to treat this scandal in the usual manner that has now become the MO of the SLP government. Instead of addressing the pertinent issues, Dr. Ile chose instead to divert attention and cause distractions with red herrings, innuendos, scapegoating, and partisan political rhetoric. I want to now address some of the issues raised by Dr. Ile. Session to Dr. Ile, and to the SLP as a whole. So Dr. Ile mentioned that Galaxy was brought to St. Lucia by the United Workers' Party, which is a fact that the United Workers' Party does not deny. However, what this has to do with the fact that there are those allegations taking place under his watch, his tenure, he did not explain to us. Having brought Galaxy to St. Lucia, the question is whether the United Workers' Party engaged in or entertained any wrongdoing or illegality involving Galaxy. Has there been any allegation, or just like the former government in St. Kitts was named in participating in illegalities, fraud, or wrongdoing, it is, like Dr. Hiller said, instructive that the United Workers' Party nor the Honorable Alan Chasney were named in the RICO lawsuit. So let us focus on who was fingered in the RICO lawsuit, and I hope the Prime Minister will take note, because he has indicated that he will take action anytime any of his ministers are fingered in any corrupt or illegal act. So, when Galaxy came to St. Lucia, the options that existed, among the options that existed were the direct donation, and we had also the more involved real estate option. And I just want to speak to this a little to explain to our listeners what obtained with Galaxy under the United Workers' Party. As an approved real estate developer under the UWP, Galaxy was supposed to undertake a $350 million US project, which entailed the construction of 2 hotels, and those hotels were namely Dreams and Zoe Tree. Those were the brands that would have been constructed in St. Lucia under that program. Galaxy, the arrangement was that Galaxy would be allowed 60% of the project cost, to raise 60% of the project cost under the CIP, which would be equivalent to about $210 million US. And they were, as a result, allocated 700 passports, which was approved for them to raise that $210 million US. Galaxy, however, was responsible for raising 40% of the cost of that project, and that would amount to in the vicinity of $140 million US. So that was the arrangement. Galaxy not only being allowed to use our passport money solely to build this hotel, but would in fact have to put in an investment of their own of at least 40%, which amounted, like I said, to about $140 million US. The minister must tell us, under the current arrangement, whether that still stands. These are the details that we expect, especially given the fact that this program is shrouded now in all kinds of secrecy, all kinds of accusations, all kinds of allegations. He must come out and give us the details, enlighten us, and give us the comfort of knowing exactly what is taking place currently. So we want to know from the minister whether that arrangement still stands, because by his own admission, government has approved 1,367 applications for Galaxy. Okay, and he said those were approved specifically for Galaxy out of about 2,000 applications that were approved. Now, this, by my calculation, is almost double the allocation that were approved for Galaxy by the United Workers' Party. So why that increase of almost twice the amount? And what is that extra money going to be used for? How is it going to be allocated? How is it going to be settled? And what benefit does St. Lucia derive from that new arrangement? These are the questions that we must get. It is interesting, as my colleague, Senator Fede, mentioned as well, that Dr. Hiller failed to provide any details on the newly initiated infrastructure program. That program was not ventilated to the public in a manner that they could understand all what it entails. They have not spelled out the regulations and the arrangements that are required under that program. He has not said to us, Galaxy, after Galaxy mentioned that they were a developer under that program, he confirmed it, but he did not mention to us what project they will undertake, what is the allocation of shares assigned to them, nor did he tell us how many of those shares have been approved. These are the questions that we need to know. These are the answers that he has to give. He also ventured into suggesting that apart from UWP being responsible for bringing Galaxy to St. Lucia, which there's nothing wrong with, he also suggested, and when I speak of red herrings and innuendos, he suggested that it was Alan Chasney who set up the escrow account in China, or in Hong Kong, rather, which is a department of China, so to speak. The Honorable Alan Chasney has since explained that while the legislation called for an escrow account to be set up in St. Lucia, none of the local financial institutions were willing to engage in setting up the escrow account, and so he had no alternative but to go to another international financial institution. And so Hong Kong, being one of the more renowned institutional jurisdictions like New York and other jurisdictions, we chose Hong Kong, especially since the company was a Chinese company, to easier facilitate payments and deposits. However, that escrow account was available and accessible to the CIP officials at any time, at any juncture, so that they could ascertain exactly what was taking place and they could monitor whether the regulations were being followed. That Dr. Ernest Hiller inherited when he became the Minister of CIP for St. Lucia. And if he is so critical and wants to suggest that there was anything wrong with that arrangement, he has had 3 years to reverse it or to do something alternatively. He has not. He has continued with that arrangement. The question is, was there a similar arrangement for the infrastructure program? Is there an escrow account set up where any proceeds from the infrastructure program would be deposited into that account so that our CIP officials could have access to that account to monitor whether what is supposed to be done is being done, to find out how much exactly is being raised and what is the bottom line as far as the resources that exist in that escrow account is concerned. So these are the questions that Dr. Hiller has to answer, rather than trying to suggest that there is something untoward with what was done under UWP administration. I want to remind Dr. Hiller that MSR and Philip Martinez had the option, if they wanted to include the United Workers' Party administration or the Honorable Alan Chasney in light of this. Is that, and like I said, it's a major crisis. It is time that Minister Hiller appreciate that this scandal is a national crisis of international proportions and treat it as such. What is expected of Dr. Hiller or what was expected of him in his address, was that he would take the matter seriously and make a decisive statement addressing the allegations that have been made, making full disclosure of information pertaining to our CIP program and its current status, and like I said, including details of what is taking place with the secretive infrastructural program. As well as, in addition to this, we expected Dr. Hille to make an announcement of the honorable obvious next step, in that he would tender his resignation, step down as a minister, while and until he cleared his name, he cleared the air, cleared his name and the allegations swirling around him and the program. It is incumbent upon Dr. Hille to take this time, after he has stepped down from being minister responsible for the program, or minister of our cabinet for that matter, to prove his innocence and that he was not engaged or involved in any wrongdoings that were mentioned in the lawsuit by MSR. A lawsuit in which he was cited as a co-conspirator, and we were told that he would be, if I should say, upgraded to the status of defendant. That is, must make a statement pledging his commitment to conduct an independent investigation of what has transpired, what is taking place in our CIP program. And he must demonstrate his appreciation of the gravity of this scandal by relieving the CEO, Mr. MacLeod Emmanuel, of his responsibility as head of the CIP, and by requesting the stance that he took in the case of former President of the Senate, Stanley Felix, and dismiss the CEO and ask Dr. Hille to step down as Prime Minister. In the past, we have seen other leaders take similar action. Back in the day, under Sir John Compton, when a scandal emerged in the Ministry of Communications and Works, the minister then was asked to resign. In more recent time, under the Alan Shastney administration, when allegations were made about two of his ministers, namely Jimmy Henry and subsequently Dr. Yubalus Raymond, they too were asked to demit office. I am calling on the Prime Minister to do the honorable thing and show that you have an appreciation of the magnitude of this national crisis of international proportion that we face as a country, and forget the partisan politics, forget the obsession with Alan Shastney, forget the scapegoating, forget the red herring, forget the innuendo, and stop pointing fingers and blaming others, but instead take responsibility and show leadership. I thank you. At this juncture, as indicated by Senator Fede, Deputy Political Leader of the United Workers' Party, we will take your questions if you should have any. Please indicate who you are, your media house that you represent, and ask your questions. I will attempt to repeat the questions because we have had complaints by our online listeners that they do not hear the questions that come from members of the media. Ladies and gentlemen, we are open to questions.
Good morning, John Tench, Senator. In Mr. Martinez's lawsuit filed, he articulates the projects in St. Vincent which he says were corrupt and the same in St. Lucia's case, he was being rather general. Which project or projects do you think that Mr. Martinez is referring to?
Well, pardon? You want to take it? Okay, go, no problem.
Well, I think that Mr. Martinez was very specific in his lawsuit as to which projects and which company and which individuals. First of all, he listed the CEO of the CIP unit, Mr. McLeod Emmanuel, in the first instance in his lawsuit, and then the minister was named as a co-conspirator, which means that he was in collusion with whatever fraud and money laundering that the lawsuit was claiming. And secondly, it is clear that in the lawsuit, all over the suit, you will find a lot of information about the Canals project, of which he has expressed a lot of concern. He has asked the question whether the information he has received about McLeod, and that is according to the lawsuit, whether the 6,000 passport claim at $200,000, whether it wasn't exorbitant to develop a hotel at Canals. Next question.
Yes. Two questions. In his address, Dr. Hilaire, Eldridge Charles, Independent News Network. In his address, Dr. Hilaire claimed that the DSH project was a CIP project. Can we get any clarity on that? Is this information true?
The question is before us is in his address, Dr. Hilaire claimed that DSH was a CIP project. This is Dr. Hilaire being disingenuous. Dr. Hilaire would have put DSH and would have gone all over the place, because what he was attempting to do was to confuse the public and to distract. Mr. Hilaire knows fully well that not a single passport has been sold on the DSH project. It has become irrelevant, obsolete in this whole debate that we're having in this current scandal which is taking place in the country. Mr. Hilaire is trying to blow smoke in the eyes of the people so that he can potentially blind a few to his own worries, his own troubles that he has got. Mr. Hilaire said a lot of things. Up to now, we don't know how many passports did the government agree to sell to Galaxy. Spider raised an important question. Under the United Workers' Party, in the real estate program, the United Workers' Party approved 700 passports. 700. Mr. Hilaire has told us that there are at least 1,367. That is almost double what the United Workers' Party has agreed to. Mr. Hilaire did not tell us whether he removed the 40% requirement that the UWP had. So while Galaxy could have sold up to 60% of the project cost on the UWP, they had to raise financing in the open market, come up with their own money of 40% of the project, representing a true partnership. And so that is how, and an example of how stringent, how tight we were, and how very good business people we were. I'm sorry for Mr. Hilaire. He clearly is trying to confuse the public. My own opinion of this whole scenario, and I'm not a judge, but if I had to be a jury, something stinks, Mr. Hilaire. Come clear. Forget the politics. Forget all the spin. Forget all of the manipulation. Come direct. Answer the question. We got to get over this scandal. This is important for our future. Too much is at stake. You've got people who can lose their visa-free access. This is important to many St. Lucian families. We must, again, emphasize the need for them to go to places like Martinique for medical treatment, for business, for work, for so many other reasons. This is too important to our banking system. A lot of St. Lucians would not be able to afford anything if they can't buy it online. Just imagine if our corresponding banking relationships went awry And this is what this government is gambling with so that they can continue to earn money, to put everybody else at risk. What is this about? To sell our passports and to reduce our good name and the reputation of our passports to 37,500 per passport? Could you imagine in this day and age that someone can pick up a St. Lucian passport for $37,500? Is that what we want our program to reflect? This is a national disgrace.
I have another question. I think everyone would appreciate some clarity on this point. Mr. Hill said in his address that the way the real estate program works is that an applicant would have to first pass the due diligence process. Then the money would be placed into an escrow account. And he emphasized that the money being placed in the escrow account, the 200,000 US, belongs to the developer and not the government. He said that what the government collects are the fees. But can you elaborate on if this is true and how much are the fees that the government is supposedly collecting from the sale of these passports?
A question is that Mr. Hilaire said that in his address that the monies collected by the developer does not belong to the government, but it belongs to the developer. And so, you know what we call that in the UWP? We call that bad business. And that's why, if you look at how the United Workers' Party under Alan Chasney treated, there were two developments that we were able to look at. One was Galaxy. We told them you can raise up to 60% of the monies, but the other 40%, you need to put some skin in the game. That's good business. Mr. Hilaire needs to tell us whether, under his stewardship, whether his government departed from that good business practice to ensure that the people of St. Lucia was getting a good deal, a good bargain. It's our passport, and we have to hold developers accountable. The second development was Range, and I can tell you that when he said that Range is a scandal, why didn't he release the facts of what really happened with Range? Range development was signed on the 31st of May. And if you check the Hansards of Parliament, you will see that that was 6 days before the general elections of 2016. Just imagine, a government left a political campaign 6 days before the elections, in the middle of a campaign, goes and signs an agreement. He never told us that about the Range scandal. And if you can ever get your hands on the development agreement, which I do have a copy of, you will see that the government left an election campaign, signed this with Range. Secondly, the Labour Party government under Kenny Anthony. Secondly, Range. Alan Chasney, as Prime Minister, said, I don't like the real estate program for the very same reason that you raised, that the money does not belong to the country, but it goes to the developer. So in effect, you're giving the developer a free hotel. So what we then decided was that, look, the donation program is where the money comes to the government. So you can now go out, raise the monies for the donation. This is what we said to Range, because we were the new government that had come in the very infancy of the development agreement. And we said, go out there and raise the money. It will come into the donation where we have control. And we will then unloan the monies to you. Again, Mr. Hilaire and his cronies at CIP have clearly departed from that business principle. And you have to ask yourself why. Why would the government continue to sign bad deals after bad deals after bad deals? It then raises very serious questions. Who is benefiting? Who is benefiting? And so now we know that he changed the agreement with Galaxy. Sure.
Let me just interrupt you. Now that you brought up Range, because there's been a lot of talk about that Range development, how it has cost taxpayers millions of dollars. Can you just state the facts as to what really happened with range, and how taxpayers became liable in that deal?
Taxpayers were never liable. Mr. Hilaire is the master of untruths. He has always been a liar to the people of St. Lucia. And let me explain to you. So, Range had raised about $22 million US. And all of that money went into the state's account. Okay? Because what Range was doing was selling the donation program to the marketplace. And we collected the money. We had to then establish the National Economic Fund Act, a piece of legislation that would give government a legal instrument to lend the money back to Range. So then, instead of Range going off with the money, which obtains now with Galaxy and other real estate developers under the St. Lucia Labour Party administration, what we said to Range was, we are going to be responsible. We will own our own money. It's our passport. It's our money. We didn't do the National Economic Fund on time. We were making this change, and legislation takes a long time. And then we had to part ways with Range because Range was getting impatient. And so in parting ways, Range had already committed certain amount of monies to prepare for their designs and preparatory work. We then also, the people and the government of St. Lucia. And that is the absolute truth.
Which you said when you answered, when you responded that Mr. Martinez was clear in the project being undertaken by Caribbean Galaxy with which alleged corruption would have occurred. But in his lawsuit, in his 132-page lawsuit, no mention of canals, of zoetry, of
No,
trees.
I think you need to read the lawsuit again, sir.
I have
Yeah,
read the
I think you
lawsuit.
need to. I would advise you to peruse it again.
I have read
It is
in full.
absolutely clear.
I've read it in full.
It is- it is-
I've read it in the morning, the breakfast time, lunchtime. He did not mention this.
We,
However, we can infer. since
yeah, but
Caribbean
we
Galaxy-
don't have a similar recollection of the facts.
But however, we can infer. That's fine. We can infer that he's referring to the resort in Canals. In the lawsuit, he has stated that in St. Kitts, alleged corruption would have commenced at the project's inception. If that is his claim and if that is what he's bringing, we could say that he might believe that this is what is happening with the Canals Resort. In 2021, in your party manifesto, you guys said that the Canals Resort had already started, that it was your position, you guys were going to bring it forward. So if Mr. Martinez's claims are to hold true, then he's suggesting that some sort of corruption that occurred when you guys were in office. It is either that or Mr. Martinez, as I am saying, has not been clear and has not stated which project undertaken by Caribbean Galaxy is fraught with corruption. All
Martinez
that-
is the
all
person
that
who
he
can
said-
clarify those things you're asking there.
All that he said was that 11,000 passports, thereabout, were undersold. How is that? How do you reconcile with these facts?
So one of the things that I have with in life is not to deal with hypotheses. I can only deal with the facts before me. Martinez did not include the former administration in the
But he
lawsuit.
also didn't include the project
Allow me to
being
answer you, sir.
taken.
Martinez did not include the former administration in the lawsuit because what he said publicly is that he has no evidence of there being any fraud in the Galaxy project under the previous administration. I can tell you that the bureaucracy and the watertight nature in which we handle that project, I can tell you it frustrated me sometimes, being a member of the cabinet, because our CIP unit, I used to describe them as overly bureaucratic. That's how tight they were. And I can tell you, I can stand here and vouch my own reputation that that's how the CIP unit was managed under the United Workers' Party administration. I want to tell you further that the more important question for you as a young man is whether 14,000 of your passports are out there to be sold given away by a Chinese company who is potentially underselling the passports under the legally statute price? That is the fundamental question. The minister who came and responded, didn't you believe that he had an obligation to explain the steps? How many passports did you give to Galaxy? How many people have applied? How many have you approved? And how many applications are pending? These are the facts. I don't have time for conspiracy theories and what is not included. I think if we went there, I think we will all get cancer worrying about those facts. What we need to do is focus on the very important facts. This is an international scandal, my friend.
In the minister's address, he alleged that the opposition is in collusion with Mr. Martinez.
What's new?
Is that true? He alleged further this time that an attorney would have met with Mr. McCloud Emmanuel to coerce him to go to Washington, and that attorney has been used by the former Prime Minister as his personal attorney. What would you say to that?
I want you to put yourself in Mr. McCloud Emmanuel's shoes. You are a very intelligent young man, you. And if you know that there's a pro-UWP lawyer, would you personally take advice from a UWP lawyer if you're working for an SLP government? I leave you to answer that question. And then the other thing I want to say to you, that's what the minister claims. He claims that that is the Prime Minister's personal lawyer. That's what the minister alleged. The other thing I want to say to you, you see people like Astafan, an attorney. You know, everybody knows that Astafan is the SLP's lawyer. That's like me taking advice from Astafan. I would be a fool to do that. That would be the last person I would take advice from. Because the first thing will come to my mind, this is how ridiculous that question is, sorry. The first thing that will come to my mind, is he trying to set me up? Why am I doing this? So the claim is unfair to the lawyer. The claim is unfounded. And the claim really is a signal of a government official who is clutching at straws. He's drowning in this scandal. Time has caught up with him. He's exposed. The level of liability here is quite severe. And the government is running scared. And that's why we see them huffing and puffing. Isn't it interesting to you, as a young journalist, that McCloud Emmanuel has not responded to deny? The only thing he has said is that he never implicated the CIP minister in his statement, but never ever said that whether the claim that he told Martinez. Please refer to the press release. It's very important, those facts. If you look at the press release from McCloud Emmanuel never denied that he told Martinez, McCloud Emmanuel,
Mr. Tench.
Mr. Tench, are you going to allow me to answer you, or
Could you allow Senator Dominic to?
did you come to disrupt the press conference, or you want to have that? Well, allow me to answer you.
Could you allow him to finish his answer, sir? That is only being discreet.
Mr. Tench.
Let's continue.
Mr. Tench, in a democracy,
So are you taking over the press conference now, sir? Well, please show some
So-
courtesy and allow the gentleman to answer your question.
In the minister's
Are you finished with the question?
statement, he
I will
says
tolerate
that-
Mr. Tench
He
again.
says that, he claims that there is a Chinese due diligence firm. I think the opposition has come out to denounce the fact that due diligence is occurring outside the country, and it is a Chinese due diligence firm, and Caribbean Galaxy is a Chinese company, and of course there's a degree of math that you do, Chinese company, Chinese due diligence firm. However, in your administration, during your tenure as minister, this Chinese due diligence firm was introduced by you guys.
Mr. Tench, I have a very short answer for that question.
That it was introduced
And-
by you guys. So how, I ask a similar question to my first. How do you reconcile the fact that the Chinese due diligence firm being questioned, is a Chinese due diligence firm that you guys introduced? Similarly, where the project that by inference is fraught with corruption was introduced by the former administration. How do you guys reconcile with these two contracting facts?
So, Mr. Tench, I think you should be more concerned with one question. Where is the money? Next question.
Yes. Let's go back to the escrow account. The minister alleged that there was one signatory. The minister alleged that the fact that DSH was allowed to open an escrow account outside of St. Lucia because there was none available in St. Lucia at the time, that it opened the door for Galaxy to then open an escrow account outside of St. Lucia. The minister alleged
Spider, do you want to address this question?
that
Yeah.
there was one signatory on that account. What we want to know is are these the facts? How, if there was one signatory on the account, and Mr. Martinez did say that he has the contract that was signed by the UWP with Galaxy, and that there were measures in place. There were measures in place to monitor that.
So, isn't it?
Hold on, let me just get my question. First of all, if there was only one, what were those measures that were put in place in that contract? One. Two, is it true that there was only one signatory on the account? And how was the account being monitored by the CIP unit?
So, isn't it interesting to you that the minister spent about 21 minutes in his speech? He has been presiding over the CIP unit on affairs of this country for 3 years now. Don't you believe in your good conscience that if he had any information of fraud or anything illegal to expose Alan Chasney, that he wouldn't put it out? I leave you with that question. I know my colleague may have some comments.
And while I prefer to stick to the pertinent issues that deals with the scandal that is looming over our country, which I describe as a national crisis of international proportion, I will just ask a few questions that may guide you. The United Workers' Party, under the administration of the United Workers' Party, the CIP had a website where anybody, any member of the public could have gone and gotten all the information they wanted on the program, the nature of the program, what exactly is happening, how many passports are being sold, and all of that. In addition to that, as is required by law, we presented on an annual basis to Parliament a report on exactly what transpired in the CIP program, a Parliament which Dr. Ernest Hiller at the time sat in. I am asking the question, why, for the last 2 years, during which he has presided over the CIP program, we have not received a report? Is there something being concealed? Is there some information that we have to be denied of? Why is the breach of the legal requirement to present a report has not been done in the last 2 years?
I have a follow-up question. So, there was an allegation by Mr. Martinez, and you mentioned it earlier, that 14,000 units was allocated to Galaxy.
Right.
the minister said that they've only approved 1,367 passports. Take us through the timeline. How long does it take how long does the application process take?
Well,
From somebody applying and going through due diligence, at what point is the money paid into the account? And how long would it take normally from application to citizenship?
okay, these are the details we thought that would have come out of Dr. Ernest Hiller's address to the nation. What I can tell you is that during the tenure of the United Workers' Party, I sat in cabinet and I knew of the complaints not only by applicants, but even by members of cabinet about how tedious, how bureaucratic, how long drawn out the process was. It took months, over 6 months at times, for an approval to be granted. And the justification at the time was that due diligence had to be exhausted before they can grant. And not just local due diligence. After the due diligence was done locally, it was done regionally, the information was passed on to our international partners to verify. And so that took a long time. Today, I cannot tell you what obtains in the true fashion of our secretive government, who is not transparent, not willing to provide information, not willing to answer questions. We do not know. And even when allegations are made by outside agents, such as MSR, we would expect that some light would be shed to us, because we are the principals in this, the citizens of St. Lucia. Our officials instead prefer to engage in gaslighting. They prefer to engage in flashing red herrings. They cast innuendos and engage in partisan political rhetoric like they always do. That is not what is required right now. We want answers so that we, the citizens of St. Lucia, can rest assured and be comfortable that all of those allegations are unfounded.
Okay, what I'm trying to ascertain is whether or not monies would have been paid before the due diligence continues, begins.
No. Okay, let me just explain this. We have done that before. Let me just explain it. In the CIP program, you will have an agent who will apply. When that application is sent, it is after the due diligence process and all of that is done. If you accept that that person is suitable to become accepted in the CIP program, you will grant an allocation of a number of shares or units to that individual or company. In the case of Galaxy, the United Workers' Party allocated 700.
A person looking to obtain citizenship,
Right.
not an agent.
Yeah, but in the case of a person, if you successfully go through the due diligence, then you'll be approved as an agent. But if you are in the real estate program, that is what I can speak of because we have no information on the infrastructure program. If you are going into the real estate option, like both Senator Dominic and myself explained, in the case of Galaxy, we granted them 700 shares.
Okay, Minister, I don't think you understood my question. Let me just reiterate. What I'm asking you is, if an individual, myself as a person,
Right.
would like to become a citizen,
A citizen,
of St. Lucia
right.
via CIP,
Mhm.
when I make an application through your agent, at what point do I pay the $200,000?
Okay.
After the approval.
If you go in after the approval, if we after the due diligence is done and we say that you're suitable, you're fit to be granted citizenship by investment, you pay the amount, which in the case of like a donation, you make the donation and you get your passport.
Okay. At this point, after I've paid this money, what happens?
Well, if you just want to hold a St. Lucian passport, that is the end of the story. But if you're going into the real estate option, and that's what I was trying to explain to you, if you're going into the real estate option, you are saying that in addition to just having the passport, you or your agents want to engage in some investment in St. Lucia. So you become a developer. And you may choose to in your investment, build a hotel, or whatever investment you choose to go into. In the case of Galaxy, it was hotels. And so to do that, we're going to grant you, you're already a citizen by investment, but we're going to grant you a number of passports that you can sell to other agents who want to invest in your program. And, and that is where the opportunity for corruption, for fraud, and for illegalities exists if you're not running a tight program and a transparent program. And that is the fear that we are gripped with right now, and that is the looming question over our heads currently. Has there been corruption, fraud, and illegalities taking place in our real estate and the secretive infrastructure program?
Under the UWP, I know you're not.
This is final question because we
Final
have.
question, yes. Under the UWP, I know you're not privy to what obtains now, but could you tell the public what fees, because the minister said the government collects fees,
Right.
but he did not specify what the fees would. Could you specify under the UWP administration, how much those fees were? Was it a percentage? What exactly were those fees that the government collected on each application?
Well, in the case of Galaxy, Dominic, do you know exactly how much the fees were? Like, because Galaxy, if it is a case of you applying for a passport, I think at the time it was 100,000, and you pay the 100,000 goes to government.
No, for real estate it
for-
was 300,000.
No, the donation.
But the fees
Donation.
to the government?
The fees to the government?
The fees, the
The fees
300,000,
to the was 35,000, the government fees.
okay,
And
it was
the-
10%, right?
Correct. And then
So the
Galaxy
government
was-
gets 10%?
10%.
Of whatever investment is made, or an additional?
Call it an administrative fee, if you like. Yeah.
Okay, is it part of the 200,000, or is that an additional 10% that the government gets?
350,000, Dominic?
300,000.
300,000
EC or US?
US.
Right.
And so, what percentage? What do you know exactly what percentage?
No,
of
it was just a flat fee.
the flat fee? Yeah.
Okay, so.
But we can get you that information
So let me.
because
let me
in
just
the
address that.
UWP program there's nothing to hide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I can just address that. Okay. So there are several things. The first thing is that there are several pathways to citizenship. So you've got the donation program, which is the most beneficial to St. Lucia, in that the fees go to the government straight. Okay? And that is currently at $100,000. The real estate, while we were in government, the application fee that the applicants had to pay the government was $65,000. $65,000, but then they also had to pay the developer $300,000. So $300,000 goes to the developer, $65,000 go to the government of St. Lucia per file. Okay? Then you had the bond option. In the bond option, the applicant could decide to buy a government bond. While we were in government, it was at $500,000 for the bond option. You had to then allow the government this loan, basically for $500,000 US, which was an interest-free loan, but you get the money back in 6 years, or you can redeem the bond in 6 years' time. The government has since introduced an infrastructure program, which we know very little detail of. And so that's the concern we have. Is there an escrow account? What are the checks and balances? What are the details concerning how this program will be operated? So the one out of the $50,000, they say, for a family of four, which accounts for $37,500 per person. How much of that goes to government? We don't know. So I think I just had to try to mention the various steps, and that is because very little details have been provided by the government. I hope we clarify that for you. We will have to end now because we do have another meeting, and I want to thank you, members of the media, for your questions. I want to thank the viewers who joined us today and who made the time to listen to what we had to say. And we want to end by saying that we are outraged, we are ashamed, this is disgraceful what has happened, learning that someone can buy a St. Lucian passport for as low as $37,500 in the infrastructure program, which has provided very little details, is very concerning to us. This is a crying shame to our patrimony. It is a disgrace to our international reputation, and really and truly it puts at risk our visa-free access that we currently enjoy to very important countries that we need to travel to for all kinds of reasons. It also puts at risk the corresponding banking relationships that we enjoy, our ability to trade online, to do online shopping. This is what is at risk, St. Lucia. While the government was telling you that it was difficult for them to issue you St. Lucian's passports, they were selling passports and telling the international marketplace through the CIP program that they will approve passports for a maximum of 30 days. So within 30 days of applying, CIP applicants were assured of passports, while the people of St. Lucia did not have the same level of efficiency, the same level of care, and the same level of thought. Final words for you, Spider.
Yeah, to end, I just want to reiterate some of the calls that I made earlier. I have indicated that we have an appreciation of the magnitude of the crisis that we face, the scandal that is looming over our state, and we call on the government to take it seriously, to desist from, again, all the scapegoating, the red herring, the innuendos, and so on, which has not provided any relief, which has not cleared the air as to what is going on, which has not helped the situation one bit, and which the international community has no interest in. What we have to do is to save the reputation of our government, to protect the IP program, and to erase the solid stain that has been placed on our image as a country. We need to come out and be transparent, be open, give as much information as is required to clear the air. And while Mr. McLeod, who is a defendant, proceeds in clearing his name and proving the allegations about him and the program to be untrue, he should be asked to demit office. And while the minister responsible, who has not dealt with the relevant issues as yet, what he can do in the meantime is the honorable thing to tender his resignation while he seeks to clear his name and to restore the good reputation and image of St. Lucia and to restore the integrity of our program. And if he fails to do so, I'm calling on the Prime Minister to show leadership and do what he has done before and claim to uphold, demand the highest level of professionalism and integrity from all public officials at all times, the words of the Prime Minister. And in uttering those words, he proceeded to announce that he would be removing the former President of the Senate from office. We are asking him to do the same in this case and remove his deputy, his minister responsible from the CIP, from the cabinet while this matter is resolved. And as we go along, ensure that more transparency and accountability is provided in the CIP program, unlike what obtained for the last 3 years, and do the legal thing, because everything suggests that there is something shady about what is going on. Even the fact that the laws of this country has been flouted by not acceding to the requirement of providing an annual report, an annual audited report to the Parliament. The transactions that have taken place in the last 2 years, we want to know where we stand as far as is concerned, and the 1,367 passports that have been approved, where has that money gone to? Is it in the escrow account? How much exactly is in the escrow account? What is the benefit to St. Lucia? How much does St. Lucia benefit? And these are information that we are entitled to as a people. It is our country, it is our passport, it is our future, and the risk that we are placed under right now is ours to bear. And let me just remind St. Lucians, quite apart from our reputation, our image, and our integrity, you stand possibly to face the wrath of our international partners who have granted us visa-free access to their countries. I want to thank you, members of the media. I want to thank those of you who have been watching online. And we ask you to join us once again as we stay on top of this situation in the interests of our country, for the good name of our country and our people. Thank you.